He said our love had to stay hidden because his family wouldn't understand. I believed him for 2 years, but when I discovered the real reason he kept me secret, I decided to make some noise that would echo through his perfect white world forever. If you've ever sat in someone's passenger seat while they drove past their own neighborhood because they didn't want to be seen with you, this story is going to hit you right in the chest. If you've ever had to delete photos from your phone because someone was afraid their friends might see them, you're going to understand every single word I'm about to tell you. And if you've ever been made to feel like you weren't quite enough for someone's world, like you needed to make yourself smaller just to fit into the corners of their life, then you need to hear what happened when I finally decided to stop whispering. I spent 2 years believing I wasn't good enough for his family. 2 years thinking I had to earn my place in his world. 2 years making excuses for why love had to live in the shadows. But sometimes, the universe has a funny way of showing you that the problem was never you at all. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on the door, it kicks it wide open and invites everyone to see what's been hiding behind it. So if you're ready to see what happens when a black woman decides she's done being anyone's secret, hit that like button right now and make sure you subscribe, because by the time I'm finished telling you this story, you're going to want to share it with every person who's ever made you feel like you weren't worthy of being loved out loud. Trust me, the ending is going to leave you speechless. Let me take you back to where this all started, because honestly, it began like something out of a movie. I'm standing in line at this upscale coffee shop downtown, scrolling through my phone after another long day running marketing campaigns, when this voice behind me says, "Excuse me, but are you reading about the Morrison account? Because I just closed a deal with them yesterday." I turn around, and there's this man with the most genuine smile I'd seen in months. Devin. Tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent, but somehow he didn't feel pretentious. He felt warm. We ended up talking for 3 hours in that coffee shop. 3 hours about everything and nothing. Work, dreams, the books we were reading, places we wanted to travel. He was a corporate lawyer. I was climbing the ladder in marketing. And we just clicked in a way that felt effortless. When he asked for my number, I actually felt butterflies for the first time since college. Real, honest-to-goodness butterflies. Our first few months were like something I'd only seen in romantic comedies. Devin would surprise me with reservations at restaurants I'd only dreamed of trying. Weekend getaways to wine country, where we'd talk until sunrise about our biggest fears and wildest ambitions. He remembered everything: how I liked my coffee, that I was scared of horror movies but watched them anyway, that my grandmother's ring was the most precious thing I owned. He made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced before. But then came the conversation that would change everything. We were lying in bed one Sunday morning, and I mentioned wanting to meet his family. The shift in his energy was immediate. He got quiet, distant, like someone had just turned down the volume on our perfect little world. That's when he told me about his family. Old money, conservative values, traditional expectations. They wouldn't understand us, he said, stroking my hair like he was trying to soften the blow. It's not about you, Zara. It's about them. They've never been around diversity. They need time. I felt my heart sink, but I also felt something else. Sympathy. Here was this man I was falling for, caught between the woman he loved and the family that raised him. So I did what I thought any understanding girlfriend would do. I told him I'd wait. I told him we could take it slow, keep things private until he figured out how to bridge that gap. I thought I was being supportive. I thought I was being mature. Looking back now, I realize I was being naive. 6 months turned into a year, and our relationship deepened in every way, except the one that mattered most. We were building something beautiful in the shadows, but shadows have a way of making you forget what sunlight feels like. I started making excuses to my friends about why I was always single at events. I stopped posting about my personal life entirely. I became a ghost in my own love story. And somehow, I'd convinced myself that this was what love looked like when it was worth fighting for. By the time we hit the year-and-a-half mark, the cracks in our perfect secret romance were starting to show, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. It wasn't just the family excuse that was bothering me, it was everything else that came with it. Devin would tense up whenever his phone rang in my presence, stepping into another room like he was handling classified information. When I suggested we grab dinner in his neighborhood, he'd always have some reason why we needed to go somewhere else. Somewhere farther away, somewhere safer for our secret. The breaking point came when my best friend Keisha cornered me at my birthday party. "Girl, I've been watching you for months now," she said, pulling me aside. "You're always alone at events. You never talk about dating anyone. And you've got this glow like you're getting good loving from somewhere. What's really going on?" I tried to brush her off, but Keisha wasn't having it. She's the kind of friend who sees through your lies before you even finish telling them. That's when I realized how isolated I'd become. I'd been so busy protecting Devin's comfort that I'd forgotten about my own. So I did something I probably should have done months earlier. I asked Keisha for help. She runs background checks for a living, and she offered to do some digging. "Just to put your mind at ease," she said. "If his family really is as conservative as he claims, we'll find evidence of it. But if they're not—" She didn't need to finish that sentence. What Keisha found shattered everything I thought I knew about the man I loved. Devin's family wasn't old money. They were solidly middle class from the suburbs. His parents weren't conservative traditionalists. They were progressive Democrats who volunteered for racial justice causes and had Black Lives Matter signs in their yard. His mother's social media was full of posts about equality and inclusion. This wasn't a family that would reject me because of my race. This was a family that would probably embrace me with open arms. But the real gut punch came when Keisha showed me the family photos from recent gatherings. Devin's mother had been posting about her son's mysterious girlfriend for months, talking about how excited she was to finally meet Sarah. Sarah, not Zara. Sarah, the white woman Devin had apparently been describing to his family for the past 2 years. I sat in my car outside Keisha's office, staring at those photos, feeling like my entire world had just collapsed. This wasn't about family acceptance. This wasn't about conservative values or traditional expectations. This was about a man who was so uncomfortable with dating a Black woman that he'd created an elaborate lie to avoid dealing with it. He'd been living a double life, and I'd been the fool enabling it. When I confronted Devin that night, he crumbled like a house of cards. The tears, the apologies, the explanations about being scared and getting in too deep. None of it mattered anymore. I finally understood that I hadn't been hidden to protect his family's feelings. I'd been hidden to protect his own cowardice. You know that moment when you realize you hold all the cards, and the person who's been playing games with your heart doesn't even know the game has changed? That's exactly where I found myself after Devin's pathetic confession. He was sitting on my couch, tears streaming down his face, begging for forgiveness like I was supposed to feel sorry for him. Like I was supposed to comfort the man who'd spent 2 years making me believe I wasn't worthy of being loved in the light. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to build your comeback on. So I dried his tears, held his hands, and told him exactly what he wanted to hear. "I forgive you, Devin. I understand you were scared. But now we need to make this right." The relief that washed over his face was almost comical. He actually thought he was getting a second chance. He actually believed that 2 years of lies could be erased with a few crocodile tears and empty promises. I suggested we come clean to his family at his sister's engagement party the following weekend. "It's perfect timing," I told him, my voice steady and sweet. "A celebration of love and new beginnings. We can finally start fresh." Devin hesitated, clearly terrified. But he was in no position to argue. He'd been caught, cornered, and he knew his only shot at redemption was to go along with my plan. What Devin didn't know was that I'd already called Keisha and told her everything. What he didn't know was that we'd spent hours crafting the perfect strategy, not for reconciliation, but for revelation. Keisha helped me prepare for every possible scenario, every excuse he might make, every way he might try to spin the story. We were going to give his family the truth they deserved, and Devin the accountability he'd been running from. The night of the engagement party, I took extra care getting ready. I wore a dress that made me feel powerful, did my makeup like I was walking into a boardroom negotiation, because in a way I was. I was about to negotiate for my dignity, my worth, and my right to be loved without conditions or apologies. When I walked into that beautiful backyard, filled with string lights and happy families, Devin's face went pale. He rushed over to me, whispering frantically about easing them into it and being careful with our words. But I just smiled and squeezed his hand. "Don't worry, baby," I said, loud enough for his approaching mother to hear. "I'm going to tell them exactly who I am." His mother reached us first, arms outstretched with the warmest smile. "You must be Sarah," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "I've been dying to meet you. Devin talks about you constantly." I felt Devin's entire body tense beside me, but I just hugged her back and said clearly, "Actually, Mrs. Patterson, I'm Zara. We need to talk." The silence that followed my introduction was deafening. You could literally hear the music from the speakers because every conversation in our little corner had stopped. Mrs. Patterson looked confused, glancing between Devin and me like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "I'm sorry, dear," she said gently, "but I thought Devin said your name was Sarah." That's when I took a deep breath and decided to burn down the house of lies Devin had built. "Mrs. Patterson, can I speak to you and your family for just a moment? There's something you all need to know." Devin grabbed my arm, his grip desperate, but I shook him off. His sister and father gathered around, their faces curious but kind, and I realized these were good people who deserved the truth. "For the past 2 years, your son has been telling you about a white woman named Sarah," I began, my voice steady and clear. "But he's been dating me, Zara, a black woman, and he's been telling me that you're all too racist and conservative to accept our relationship." The shock on their faces was immediate and profound. Mrs. Patterson's hand flew to her chest, and his father's jaw literally dropped. "He told you we were racist," his mother whispered, her voice breaking. "He said we wouldn't accept you because you're black." When I nodded, she turned to Devin with a look I'd never seen before, pure disappointment mixed with heartbreak. "How could you think so little of us? How could you think so little of the values we raised you with?" His sister spoke up next, her voice shaking with anger. "Devin, we have Black Lives Matter signs in our yard. Mom volunteers at the community center in the predominantly black neighborhood. Dad donated to the NAACP last month. What kind of person do you think we are?" Devin stood there, unable to form words, looking like a man watching his entire world crumble around him. But the most powerful moment came when his father, this gentle man who'd been quiet until now, looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "Zara, I am so sorry, not just for what our son put you through, but for what he said about us. You deserve so much better than being someone's secret, and we would have been honored to welcome you into our family 2 years ago." That night, Devin's sister asked him not to be in her wedding. His mother told him he needed therapy to deal with his issues with honesty and prejudice. His father called him a disappointment to everything they'd raised him to believe. Meanwhile, they exchanged numbers with me, invited me to stay for dinner, and treated me like the family member I should have been all along. 6 months later, I got holiday cards from the Pattersons. Devin wasn't in the family photo. I was thriving in a new relationship with a man who posts about me on social media like he won the lottery. And Devin, he's still in therapy, trying to figure out how a man can be his own worst enemy. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. It just needs you to step aside and let the truth do its work. Let me tell you something that took me 2 years and a whole lot of heartbreak to learn. When someone truly loves you, they don't ask you to make yourself smaller to fit into their world. They expand their world to make room for all of you. Real love doesn't whisper in corners or hide in shadows. Real love announces itself proudly, celebrates you loudly, and never ever makes you question whether you're worthy of being seen. Looking back now, I realize that Devin's problem was never his family. His problem was the mirror. He was so uncomfortable with his own feelings about race, so scared of confronting his own biases, that he created an elaborate fantasy to avoid dealing with the truth. He turned me into his dirty little secret, not because I wasn't good enough for his world, but because he wasn't brave enough to examine his own heart. The beautiful irony is that his family ended up being everything I'd hoped they would be: warm, welcoming, and genuinely good people who were horrified by their son's deception. They saw me for who I was in 5 minutes, something Devin couldn't do in 2 years. That's when I understood that sometimes the people we're protecting don't need protection. They need honesty. I want you to remember something as you go about your life, especially if you're watching this because someone is making you feel like you're not enough. You were not born to whisper. You were not created to shrink. You were not designed to apologize for taking up space in someone else's world. If anyone, and I mean anyone, asks you to dim your light so they can feel more comfortable, that's not love. That's fear masquerading as affection. The right person won't need time to figure out how to love you publicly. They won't need to ease their family into accepting you. They won't create elaborate lies to avoid introducing you to their world. The right person will take one look at you and think, "How did I get so lucky?" And they'll want everyone to know it. If this story hit you the way I think it did, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that they deserve better. Subscribe to this channel because I've got more stories about women who refuse to settle for crumbs when they deserve the whole damn cake. And drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes. Would you have confronted him privately, or would you have chosen the public revelation like I did? Remember, your love story should never require you to edit yourself. The right chapter's coming, and when it does, it's going to be written in bold letters for the whole world to see. Until next time, keep refusing to whisper in anyone's world. You deserve love that's loud and proud.